Jeffrey, the Designing Woman here. Today our video is about keeping a sketchbook or a visual journal. There are so many different ways to do this. It's really a wonderful activity. It can be a lifelong hobby. In fact, some of the most famous people that you read about did keep visual journals or just little sketchbooks. It's a project that you can do that's completely private, that is a great joy. Some people share their journals all over with anyone who will look. Others never open the pages to anyone. So whatever you do, I hope that you'll come along in this particular video and learn about the basics of sketchbook or journal keeping. It's really a great hobby, and it's a great way to document your artistic journey. I've had a lot of fun with it over the many years I've been an artist, and I hope that you will too. Come along, let's go. We're ready to look at the different kinds of journals there are and some of the tools that you might want to use to keep a journal. We also want to think about some of the ways that when you keep a journal, what you might want to put into it. So let's start and look at actual journals, physically, what they might look like. One that I've kept a number, 2 or 3 of these, are these little mixed media journals. Happen to be by Strathmore. Other companies make them as well. But they're just a simple journal, and I have done pictures from trips that I've made. I've written kind of bits and pieces and made little pictures of things that I did when I was on these trips, and so you can see I have a visual reminder of what happened. It was really fun to work on this while I was on my trip. So often when you travel, there are little bits of time that make it easy to do. Sometimes I came home and finished my journal at home, but I had made notes on a separate sheet of paper. So that's one way you can keep a journal. Another way is to do something like this, just a simple drawing, things that you do, just whatever you're in the mood to draw. It can be planning for a project. I made a banner for our church, and so I used this as a sketch, as an idea to begin that project. I also just sat and practiced with some new markers, some Pitt pens and different sizes, and played with it. I was playing with poetry here, and you can see watercolor, pencil, line drawings, all sorts of things can happen in your journal. No one needs to look at your journal but you. Your journal can be really, really big, like this. From my college days, I kept an enormous sketchbook. That was part of the requirement for a class, but it was a great start. This particular book is, like I said, from my student days. There's a pen and ink drawing, and it's a place that just records what I was thinking, what I was doing. There are also larger or smaller sketchbooks, the same sort of thing. You can see I did a little watercolor. Whoops, there's one that, there was an idea for a book illustration. Just some design work, just plain. And there, a sketch of my cat looking out the window. It is a very private place. You don't have to share what's in your journal, but you can keep a record and enjoy being creative in your own way without having to make a fancy painting. Here's one you can see is a hardbound book. There are many of these available. The drawback to having a hardbound journal is that it lays open, but you can't fold it back and draw on it. For instance, this particular one, which was a trip journal that I made, you can take the pages and fold them back and work this way. This particular one, you cannot do that. Sketch journals don't have to be large. They can be quite small. They can be a little tiny book like this with a way to keep your place, keep your page open. And you can see I haven't done much in this one yet. It was a gift, and I've just started keeping it, just a very small amount here. As I was beginning, as I went to a conference, I started taking some notes, and my goodness, I've got pages to fill. It's like a treasure waiting to happen. I want you to see that even smaller yet. Look at that. Just a little one. This is only $3 on the sale table at the art supply store, It's very much like this, very plain. So you can keep a sketchbook that'll literally fit in your pocket along with a pen or a pencil, and you can make a sketchbook anywhere you go. Subjects for sketching: nature, everyday life, travels, people, daydreams, thoughts, inventions, and ideas and musings. Realistic? Perfect? Not necessarily. This is your sketchbook. Do it your way. Sketches by definition are loose and unfinished. Sketching helps you develop your noticer, your ability to intentionally observe the world around you. Sketching gives an opportunity to notice and reflect on daily life, all within the privacy of your own sketchbook. Wherever you roam, your sketchbook can record the sights, smells, sounds, and magic of your life's moments. You are making your own book. I'm going to use this particular book, sketchbook, to show you. I painted on the cover. It was a plain book, and I peeled the label off of it and painted my own label on it. Stuff. There we go. It's not terribly serious. It's a place to experiment and think. And so that's what I'm going to do here. I've got an open page, and I can do a number of different things in my sketchbook. I can make a habit of wherever I go, making pictures of the buildings that I see. I can make pictures and keep a record of plants or animals that I'm interested in. I can draw pictures of people that I know, situations that I see, can go sit at the coffee shop and make sketches of people who don't even realize that I'm painting them. Whatever it is that you keep in your sketchbook, you'll want some different kinds of tools are available to you. In my particular sketchbook, I often use what are called pit pens. Pit pens come in different sizes. There's a small, here's a medium, do you see the M? And here is an extra small. Micron is another brand. These are waterproof fine line markers for making art. They are really not intended to write with particularly, but I use these to draw with. You can see that the point is small, and they come in wide, thicker ones. Let's go to this medium here, and you can see it's definitely thicker. Let me compare it for you. You can see the difference between the medium and the small. So there we go. Let me see. There's the small. It's labeled on both ends, the cap and the end. So you can use black and white pens, and the point in using waterproof fine line markers is that you can add color. You may end up wanting to use a Sharpie marker, ultrafine Sharpie marker, very similar. It is not quite as fine as the ones that you'll find here. You may want to just use a plain old pencil. My favorite brand is Ticonderoga, a size 2 HB. You may get very carried away. Maybe you got a Christmas gift of colored drawing pencils. They come in various hardnesses, and so when they are softer, the 2B, 4B, 6B, those are softer than the 2H, 3H, 6H, whatever. So you might want to experiment. You may want to use charcoal pencils. So that's a possibility. You may want to do drawings with just pencils. If that's the case, you're probably going to want a rubber eraser. Staedtler or Pentel are good erasers to use. They're helpful tools. You can put graphite down or charcoal down, and then you can use your eraser to actually take things away to create highlights. So that's kind of a slick trick with that. If you're using a pencil, you're probably going to wish that you had a really good pencil sharpener. This is a fairly inexpensive tool that you can buy, but it really is worth its weight in gold. It's fairly heavy, and it has 2 different sizes, so you can use it to sharpen pencils. These blades are replaceable, and so you can always have a nice sharp blade to cut and get a very sharp pencil point and take it wherever you go. Really easy to put it in your pocket. Like I said, I use fine line markers in my journals very much. Another thing I can do when I've drawn my picture with my fine line marker, or I could have drawn my picture with pencil, gone over it with fine line marker, and then used the eraser, cleaned up the pencil marks, and come back for color. Ways that I've colored in my journal, I can use simple color crayons. These can be sharpened with the fat part of your sharpener, and you can get them to a point, and they actually work. So don't despise the small things, the simple things that you had all your life, a box of crayons. Another possibility is to have colored pencils. They're great, and they come in a lot of different qualities. Crayola is a great student quality, works just swell. But you might want to, if you're getting more serious about your artwork, you may want to go to a better brand that is a little bit better quality, and those pencils will have more pigment and better binders so that they give you a better quality line and color. The brands that you may find will be Caran d'Arche, Pentel, Barrel, Prismacolor. So those are just a few of the names. So check it out and see. But in the meantime, use just colored pencils. I also use markers sometimes. You can use just colored markers like this. They're just fine line. You can have the ones that have a different, each end is a fat end and a skinny end. You can see there's a big fat end. Some of them are calligraphy style. Some are just pointy. Here you got one that's kind of a ballpoint and some that has fine line. This particular kind is called a zig marker. They're really great, but they come in other brands as well, and all of them are really fun to use. You can also use markers that are sparkly and bright colored, neon color. I got these not long ago and have had a lot of fun. I actually bought some black paper. So maybe your journal has black or gray pages and you'll want some of these sparkly or glow-in-the-dark kind of colors. Those are another fun aspect. The way that I often color in my journal is to use a little watercolor palette. This particular one is very inexpensive. It paints down with just water on a brush or a water brush. You can paint down color so that it is opaque. It does not, you can't see the paper through the color. And so this paint is called opaque watercolor or gouache. The alternative to that would be transparent watercolor. And transparent watercolor, I've taken some tubes of watercolor and I've included them in a little palette that I was able to add the color to myself. And you can see I squirted some watercolor paint out into my tubes, into my tray, and I've labeled it here so I remember which colors I'm using. But then you can mix in here, mix up here, and use tubes. And these, it's amazing how long watercolor tubes the paint will last you. This paint, I've probably had this paint in here for a year, and I've had to refresh a few of them, but you can use them over and over again and let them dry. Just adding water to them again will let them work out. So this would be a great travel thing, just this and a paintbrush and a little bit of water somewhere on a paper towel, and you can use actual watercolor to help keep your journal. If you're going to be using those paint, oh, I did forget to tell you that with water, this kind of opaque watercolor, you can also have, it comes in other ways, for instance, in kind of a paint box effect. You can also have paint box, just watercolor paints that come just as like you did when you were a child. I'll find it here. Here we go. Just like when you were a little one, your mom might have bought you, or put in your Christmas stocking, some watercolor paints. These are transparent, and this particular brand happens to be Prang, and they're wonderful. They will fill in your painting just as easily as the fancy tube watercolors. This opaque watercolors and transparent watercolors, and we'll see the difference in that, particularly when we begin our video on watercolor. This one I've had since college days. I use it a lot, and I'm despairing that I may never have enough blue. You can see I'm wearing it down, but it's something you can use, and it's amazing how long these will actually last. So when you see the price tag, don't die of shock. One of the last things I'd like to do in my journals, and you may enjoy it too, is to practice my calligraphy. I have calligraphy pens with nibs and reservoirs on them. You'll see that this pen has a reservoir to help make the ink flow to the tip, and you can use ink. We'll have a video someday soon about doing calligraphy, and when you do that, you'll learn how to use a calligraphy pen, and you can end up using it and practicing in your journal. I do that a lot. That's a really great place, because it's like I said, it's not meant to go on the wall and be a finished art piece, but rather it's just an ongoing practice of your creativity. So with that being said, let me show you how a couple of these tools work, ones that you could use right away. I know that it's hard to think, oh, what am I going to draw? What am I going to do? Well, looking out my window, I can see some geraniums just outside my window, which I can't really show you, but I can look out there, and they're in the pot on the patio outdoors. And so I'm going to make a quick sketch here of those geraniums, and you can see that I'm going to give just some very rudimentary. I'm going to put the ball of that, and here's another flower over here. I'm just indicating where I want to use my Pitt pen. I'm going to be drawing it with Pitt pen. And I see there's a petunia, and I've got some leaves here that are going to fall over the edges, and I'm not going to worry about where they're going to overlap, simply because as I do this, there's some knobs from those geraniums. And here's the edge of the pot, and here's some of those leaves that are coming down here. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this particular drawing because it's just a demonstration, but I'm going to take my Pitt pen. I like the small, and I'm going to draw and just sketch, and I'm not trying to make a finished painting here. I'm just doing some sketchy ideas of what my geranium looks like outside my window. And I'm going to do it right over the pencil lines that I've kind of roughed in. Give me an idea of where I want to get a leaf in there, and I want another leaf in here. Okay, and there's a leaf, and it's kind of sideways, like that. And here's my petunias. There we go. I'm going to put some, okay, whoops, I need to get one of those, don't worry that it's not perfect, it's just, this is a knob that's about ready to bloom. And here's another geranium back here. Now, just indicate roughly. You don't have to make a super finished drawing. You can, if you like. It can be a place where you do that, but don't be intimidated by it and feel like if you don't make a finished drawing that you haven't done it right. There's no right or wrong in keeping a journal or making a sketchbook. And so it's a place to experiment and practice and play. And so there I go. Let's see, what did I put over there? Oh, that was another geranium over here. Okay, as I'm getting that done, I'm going to do one more big leaf here that has, okay, and I'm going to do another leaf right there, kind of fill in, and there's some stems. Oh, I think I better put some leaves out here. And you notice I'm not making fancy pictures here. I'm going to put the edge of my pot in, and just call that good. Now, I'm going to put my waterproof fine line marker away. I'm going to get out my eraser, and I'm going to clean up the pencil lines that I just put on there. It doesn't have to be perfectly cleaned up because this is a sketch. I could leave them there for that. I don't really have to take them away. So now I'm ready to paint. And I can either use my watercolor paints or I can use my opaque or gouache paint. And I really love these. When I travel, this, my sketchbook, my pen, my pencil, and my water brush, and a piece of paper towel, I am set to go. This is all I need to keep a journal on the road to travel with. Pretty amazing. So think about how little you actually have to have. Here I am, and I'm going to use what's called a water brush. Now, ordinarily, when you paint with watercolor paint, you would need brushes, and you would use the watercolor paint like this, and you would get your brush into the water, and you would dip it into the paint and create paint either on a palette, which this can be a miniature palette. You could mix green and yellow and get a little yellow-green here and mix it here and put it on. Or you can paint directly from here and let the paint mix on your paper. I'm not going to use transparent paint today, just to demonstrate here. I'm going to stick with the opaque paint. So here I am, opaque paint, and I could use regular brushes. I found this one, I think it was less than $1 at the art supply store when they had a little special going. A little tiny brush, doesn't have to be very big, doesn't have to be fancy. I could use that, or I can use regular paint brushes. These are better quality watercolor brushes. They have different numbers that indicate what size they are. To know whether they're a good brush or not, they will come to a nice strong point. This one is beginning to get a little tired. He still will come to a point. This one, you can see when I've gotten it wet, comes to a lovely sharp point. It's still in really good shape, and it's meant for watercolor. But today, I'm going to use what's called a water brush. They come different brands, different people. They feel a little spendy, but they're really a great little tool if you're going to travel especially. The lid screws on, and there's a brush right here. And how you get the water to it, and you can actually put paint or ink in here, is this bladder comes, and you can fill it with water. See that I put water in here already, so there you are, you can see the water. When I screw it back on here, and because it's a somewhat soft plastic, I can squeeze it, and when it's upright like this, the water will come through. And so I've got water and paint right here at my fingertips. So I'm going to begin with my geraniums and my pot. And so I think I want to build kind of a terracotta color pot. So I'm going to do some red. I'm going to put some red, and you see I've squeezed and added water to this opaque paint. Sometimes it takes a few moments for the paint to get where you can actually use it. I'm going to squirt, and then you see that I've got red paint on my brush. Well, I don't want necessarily, I want to change to green. I would need to clean this off. All I need to do is squeeze and use the paper towel, keep squeezing a little bit of water until it comes clean. The brush is cleaned and ready to go to a new color. Awesome. Okay, so I want to add now, I didn't want to sully up my other paint, so I'm going to add a little bit of brown, not very much, to get kind of a terracotta color going here. Let's see if that's going to do the trick. Probably will. Maybe I want, yeah, it's getting there. You can see, I can tell, yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. So I can dip in here, and if I'm not squeezing, I'm going to be able to use the paint I've created there, or I can just paint what I've just dipped out. So here I am. I'm going to fill in. I am not going to worry about putting it in absolutely accurately up to every single edge of my drawing. That's my style. Your style may be a little more controlled. You may want to be more perfect, and that's fine. I'm not inclined to think that sort of thing. And I'm going to make some shadow. I'm going to add a little bit extra paint, give some shadows up under here. Okay, the nice part about this is that this paint will dry fairly quickly. So let's go on here. I'm going to clean my brush off, squirting just like I did before until my paper my brush is clean. I'm going to work on just the red. I'm going to do my geranium. Ooh, well, my geraniums out there are pink, so I'm going to add a little bit of purple to this, and I'm just going to work like this purpley pink. Whoa, there we go. That's kind of what I wanted. Oh, but some of those geraniums, I want some with lots of color and some not so much. And my little knobs, I want you to notice that I am not spending an immense amount of, this is something that's intended to just a quick sketchy record of what you're doing in your life. Okay, here's my green, and I'm going to need some nice rich, whoops, those are too green. I'm going to put some stems in there. I'll go back and do that. You can see how this works. Whoops, oh, that's my petunia, and I just painted it green. Oh dear, what will I do? I'm going to try to clean it up. Maybe I can get some of that green off of there. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's working. I'm kind of squirting, and I can moisten and dab it up. Okay, let me do a little bit of blue and see if I can save this. Yeah, there. Give it a blue cast. Okay, and I'm going to take some of that off of there. That petunia is not really blue, but let's do this petunia. Let's pretend that's a petunia down there. Okay, there you see. Well, I'm not quite done. I haven't finished the other green. I'm going to make this green a little bit bluer green. You can see I can get these all mushed up. And there we go. How's that? Nice blue-green. There's a blue-green. Let's do some edges in there. Well, because I'm hurrying in a demonstration here, this isn't necessarily my best drawing, but you get the idea. That's how I keep a particular journal. Maybe you are wanting to create a journal that's just black and white. Maybe you're going to use your pencil and draw just from what you're seeing around you. So I see my hand with my ring. I'm going to sit here and draw my hand. I'm going to go way back here and imagine my hand. Okay, you get the idea. You can use a pencil, just a pencil. So all you'll need is your sketchbook, pencil, and an eraser, maybe a sharpener in your pocket, and you're good to go. So just take a little notebook, pencil, sharpener, and an eraser, and you can draw anywhere you go. It's an easy thing to do. I'll take this pencil and be off. So there you see a lot of different ways that journals can be made, a lot of different ways to make visual journals or sketchbooks. I hope that you have a good time. I hope that you take up the hobby of keeping a sketchbook. Take it easy. Goodbye.